Guys, intro time.
Wait, which intro?
The wisdom check.
Oh, good.
Wait, no. I thought we were keeping the old intro. What's wrong with the old one? People like that one.
It was too long.
Yeah.
Too many fucking gifs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But can we keep the part where I yell more?
No.
But it's the intro to end all intros.
I got like what? 2 lines last time?
Do you want more lines, Tim?
Well, no, not really.
In a world without answers.
Yeah.
Wait, you want to start with that?
Here we go. Exactly like last time.
Wait, okay, so we're doing the exact same way? Let's start with the Smoky Bar.
No. It's a new season. We have to have a new intro.
More.
Not sure why we thought this would go any differently.
Oh, well. Welcome, everyone, to the Wisdom Check, where Jeff and Dustin welcome a guest every week to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Welcome.
This is ridiculous. I'm starting the stream now.
Wait, where's my die at? Well, we can't start until I botch. And it's not an intro unless I'm botching.
You're on.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Wisdom Check. I'm never going to get tired of that new intro. That's a good one. And tonight we are doing something a little special. Before I get the introductions going, I'm going to let you guys know what the words are appearing on the screen are. And we are making sure that we caption ourselves tonight for those who may be hearing impaired. So if you like this service, awesome. We'll show you how to get a hold of that, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But for now, I'm Jeff. I'm your usual host. Across from me on the far end over there is Tim. You've seen him last week. He's stepping in to help out, cover for Dustin again here. And I want to say thank you very much for stepping in today. Appreciate that.
Thanks for having me back, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. And between us, we are joined tonight by Jennifer Kretchmer. And if you haven't seen her before, hello. She is a pretty big deal. She is a co-creator and executive producer of Monsters and Fables. She's dealt with all kinds of stuff in the comic book and D&D world. You'll see her at Comic-Con doing panels and stuff. And she's done a lot of things. Like if you've ever watched TV, you probably bumped into something she's been a part of. My Partner Knows Best, Let's Make a Deal, Dollhouse, Veronica Mars. So there's a lot of things she's touched base into. And one of those things is tabletop role-playing games, of course. So welcome to the channel. Appreciate you coming here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. Appreciate it. So one of the things we always like to get into at the start is, just to find out how you got into the hobby to begin with. So maybe give us a little background.
I sort of had a false start when I was around 14. My brother, who's younger than me, was starting to get really into D&D, and he tried to explain it to me, and it didn't quite click. I couldn't quite understand what he was trying to tell me about. But a few years later, I had a group of friends who wanted to get a campaign going, and I said sure. So I started playing second editions. This is almost 20 years ago.
Nice.
And that campaign ended up going on for 8 years.
Wow, that is a serious campaign.
It got me hooked. Yeah,
That's
it got me
epic.
completely hooked. And
Nice.
I've been playing ever since. And yeah.
So what was the kind of the nature of that campaign that got you hooked for 8 years?
Oh my gosh. So we had 3 different arcs. We just had a first arc, and then the second arc ended up being a prequel, and the third arc was later in time. We sort of jumped all over. It was just an epic story, and at that point we didn't really know that modules or adventures existed, so it was all just from the 3 books that I stole from my brother, which
Nice.
were the Player's Handbook, Monster's Manual, and the DM's Guide. And
That's the way to do it.
We just went from there. That's the first place I DM'd. And we transitioned into 3rd edition then, and 3.5 and 4th. And that campaign ended during 4th edition, I think.
Gotcha.
Like right around when 4th edition came out.
So it actually spanned, I guess technically 4 editions.
Yeah, it did.
Wow.
It did. We jumped around into 4 editions. Yeah, it was a lot. And then I started playing in a number of other campaigns and running other campaigns with different groups of people. And I had a couple of those that went 3-4 years. Yeah, I mean, a couple that have been going over a year now, so
Man,
it's a
that's cool.
blast.
Well, I definitely
Yeah.
have to ask, what did you play in that original campaign?
My very first character was a half-elf druid named Aoife. Yeah,
Classic.
very classic. Just straight up, I was the stereotype.
You know, I think we all go through that. Like I've talked about, like my first characters are always rogues, you know, like I was a smaller guy when I was younger. So it's like, I'm going to play like me. I'm smart and I'm fast, you know? And I think everyone kind of gravitates towards something that feels familiar for that first character.
Oh yeah. If you tell me what your first D&D character is, I'll know a whole lot about your psychology. And so,
I want to go into being a wizard now.
yeah. And then your second character, you usually go really far away
Yep.
from who you are. You try and do the exact opposite. But now I'll play anything. I'll roll up a random character and play it, and it's a blast. You know, there's always something fun to grab onto in any character.
Yeah.
So.
It's cool that you kind of got into it in a very similar way to most of us in our group. You know, we talked about it before that a lot of our initial games were all homebrew. You know, we just didn't have any of the other books like you're talking about. We didn't know about modules. We were just picking them up. So everything we dealt with has all been homebrew stuff. Our DM is in the chat right now telling us that psionics are bullshit. That's Leviathan over there. So
True. Still accurate.
he runs a majority of our games, and all of them, as far as I can think, are all homebrew campaigns. And that's a big part of kind of the DNA of our channel. You know, I'm assuming you do some module work nowadays, though, right?
I do.
There?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'm running currently with one of my groups. We're about to finish Waterdeep, but I didn't run a straight Waterdeep, straight Dragon Heist campaign. I ended up adding in a bunch of different adventures, side quests. So they did Blue Alley, and they did the Beggar Prince, which then created a Cambion running around and a new faction for them to be dealing with. And it's given me a lovely transition to go into Avernus. It's a blast.
Nice.
So,
oh, that's cool. So they're going pretty well then. You know, the new models and everything. Yeah. I keep wanting to kick around and look at some of those, but like I'm saving it so I can watch somebody's stream of it, because like each person's interpretation of it seems to be very special. You know, it's reflective of the situation they're in, the table they have, the people sitting around that table. You know, each game seems to take it in very different directions. Now, do you find that there's certain styles that you gravitate towards and things that in D&D really hooked you?
I mean, I have definitely played very tactical, crunchy games. More war game style stuff. But the things I really liked about second edition that I think sort of fell apart in some of the later editions was how much you could bring in theater of the mind. And I like that 5th edition really supports that as well. I think theater of the mind, I've found that players get much more creative with it. Rather than saying, I move 4 squares and I use this ability, they'll describe what they're doing, and they'll try and do something that's a little outside the rules, but it'll be way more epic. So I tend to lean into a more theater of the mind style. I really like to go with what my players are doing. I like to lean into that. So I'll have my ideas of what I think I want to do, but it always gets abandoned for something that they're finding.
Inevitably.
Yeah. So I think that's a really important thing. You know, I've streamed my prep the last couple of weeks, and I do really, really intense prep. But then I get there and my players, find a way to go somewhere completely different, and I'll have to roll with it. But that's what DMing is this balance between prep and improv.
Absolutely.
And the prep allows you to learn the things you need to know to be able to improv. So
that's so true. Yeah, as I'm very newly DMing myself, and
congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. I have a theater background, but improv was not the strong suit of that theater background. So it's been a great crash course into just thinking on my feet and all that, and it's been a lot of fun.
D&D is the best acting class I've ever taken. It's the best writing class I've ever taken. It's the best communications class I've ever taken. Like, I will espouse the virtues of D&D to anyone for pretty much anything.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
We
agreed.
talked a little bit about that. It's a great way to skill up. Practice things that you're not necessarily inclined towards initially in a safe environment. It's really a cool way of getting an education. I mean, and you're an actress, so I mean, like, to hear that this is the best place for you to learn how to do it that's huge.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever done like the live action versions of role playing, or has it all been tabletop? Or
I co-wrote the Larp for the Moonshays that ran at Gen Con this year. And that was a blast. So it was kind of a hybrid of D&D and a Larp, but it leaned much more heavily into a Larp. So it was a Larp set in the Moonshays, and it was a conclave of all of these leaders where they're going to rerun it at Winter Fantasy, actually.
cool.
And it's a blast. But I was really proud of that because I didn't have a ton of LARP experience. But this gave me a really great chance to kind of get into that world. And then I got to play an Eladrin queen, and it was fantastic.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think I'm fascinated by immersive theater and transmedia storytelling. So I do a lot of work in those fields where you're telling a story in multiple platforms and different formats. And so I think there's a lot to be done in that realm with tabletop gaming. I bring a lot of props to games. I like to craft, scrolls that my players find, or I made a Stone of Galore, I sculpted it, things like that.
Excellent.
Yeah,
So.
both of our DMs. I'm playing in Tim's game, by the way. It's excellent. I'm really enjoying it.
Man.
You're welcome.
Flattering. Thank you.
It's a great game. I've been blessed that the DMs I have around us are all excellent, and we all get there. Looks like I accidentally tripped my in-house AI here, but there it goes. Sorry about that. But anyway, the beauty of it is that we get to see so much creativity. Both Levi and Tim have brought in props like you're describing, bringing in music kind of into it, just hitting all the different senses, really, being able to kind of draw in different strengths, different ways of telling a story in. And that's really evolved what the game is to me, like as a hobby.
Yeah.
It's not just miniatures. It's not just writing. It's not just, it's all these things kind of put together in one wonderful thing,
Yeah, I mean, you look at the stuff that's coming out from Beadle and Grimm and a bunch of the other, incredible crafters who are making stuff. We really are living in just such a golden age of merch. But also communication about how people are doing things. So, having YouTube and having people talking about the tabletop crafting they're doing, the terrain building they're doing, all of that, when I started playing, that didn't exist. We were playing with pennies on the carpet to be our figurines.
Coke cans and
yeah. And so to now have this, stuff like wormwood or dogmite, these hand carved, gorgeous pieces that you can put out and display in your home and still kind of feel like an adult, is a really extraordinary thing. I feel very lucky about that. Because a lot of that is what I always wanted, and it didn't exist for a very long time. And, you put it out in there's nothing wrong with having toys on display, but like the old dice and stuff, to have really nice dice out, because, my dice are out all the time, everywhere. There's a big difference in what that feels like and what the quality of the gaming feels like now.
All right. So for the people asking why they couldn't chat earlier, I had a setting on from last time because we had some trolls bombarding us. So I think I've got it fixed now. So if you weren't able to chat a second ago, try it again now. It should work. Yeah. And
the hammer down.
I'm still getting locked out.
Are you?
So yeah.
Well, maybe I'll have to fiddle with that a few more times here, and I'll get it squared up for you.
All good.
Let's see. Turn that off. Take it just a second to get you guys squared up. I want you to be able to talk. Where is the setting?
No worries. But hello, everyone. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for joining, everybody. You all have full chat features soon, unless we, have reason to need to take them from you. But That won't happen.
Okay, it's giving me errors on this for some reason. That is wonderful.
Yay,
well,
tech issues.
I think I got it turned off now, so you should be able to do it. There it goes. Excellent. No more errors.
It's not a real show until something goes wrong and we need to fix it on the fly.
Exactly right.
Welcome to streaming and tabletop,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's
both
it's
independently and together. Of course.
It's interesting because and this is a great example of it. We had back in the day when we were getting started, it sounds like both of us or all three of us really have been playing for like upwards of 20 years at this point. And when the hobby was new, there just wasn't any technology around. We're talking about, the sorts of things we did for the table. The idea of having a stream with a chat, interacting with people while you play, having an audience that's not only just there to get to know you as people, but to enjoy the craft that you're putting out, having an immediate response to that just didn't exist.
Well,
to be able to go to someone and ask for help.
There are more than 10 people that love this hobby that are talking about it alone is just
amen.
Fantastic and mind-boggling. But to have the level of communication and interaction that we have now is phenomenal. To be able to play, we're all in different states, and it's incredible. It's incredible.
It's phenomenal. And that's the thing. I think the visibility we now have this day and age has really made it, special. It's allowed other types of people to meet other types of people and become one type of person. And, that's something beautiful about it. The ability to bring in other people. And that's one of the things you really, get to at the core of, some of your advocacy for, disabled people. Do we want to kind of touch base on that maybe a little bit?
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
Fruitzilla rains gift subscriptions on us here.
Oh
Thank you very much,
that's
Fruitzilla.
awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate that. He's up to 203 gift subs in the channel. That is
That's impressive.
ridiculous.
He's an amazing Fruitzilla.
Love this guy.
Yeah. So I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. It means that I sometimes use a cane, I sometimes use a wheelchair, sometimes I walk. I say I am the embodiment of the riddle of the Sphinx. 2 legs, 3 legs, wheels.
Gotcha. Yep.
And I have a number of other associated issues with it, but disability activism is very important to me. Accessibility, inclusion, I think are really, really important things. And it's something that really isn't talked about very commonly. 1 in 4 people is disabled during their lifetime. Yeah, it's that many. It's over 25%.
Wow.
But if you look at something like television representation, only 2% of characters on TV are disabled. And of those, only 5% are actually played by disabled actors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is something I'm working really hard to change. But disability historically has been so hidden. People have been institutionalized. It's something you don't talk about. Particularly invisible disability is something that people weren't aware of. And so for me, it's been really important to talk about it and be open about it and show the reality of it, but say, look, I also do all of these things. Yes, I'm disabled, but that doesn't mean I'm not able to, have a job,
right.
Absolutely.
Create, play games. There are all of these wonderful things that I do. And one of the things that's so great about tabletop is I really genuinely believe that there's a game for everybody. And there are so many ways to make your game more accessible. And so obviously the captions are one really, really simple thing that people can do. It's a program a website called Web Captioner. You just set it up. It's like 2 buttons. You plug it into OBS or your streaming service and you have captions. And you instantly have a stream that is accessible to deaf, hard of hearing folks.
It was really simple. We literally set it up right before the stream.
Beyond easy.
Open up a website, hit a button, it's going. It's working really well. I've seen it make a couple errors, but I think it's because I'm mumbling a little bit.
The AI is extremely good.
Yeah, it's really fast.
It got Mask from me recently, which I don't. We'll see if it captures it now. But yeah, it got Tarask, and I kind of that floored me. So it's really impressive. But it's simple things. You look at companies like Dots that are making Braille dice and There's a group that's creating signs for D&D, so that you can have ASL tables. I helped coordinate accessibility for JexCon in DC, and that was the first convention, as far as we know, to have a fully ASL D&D table.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So we live in an era where inclusion is something that we can really do, and gaming is a fantastic place to do it. There are also groups like Game to Grow or Dr. Megan Connell, who are doing therapy through D&D.
I found that to be amazing. I sat in on that lecture. Panel rather. That was really cool. Like, I would love to have them on and talk about that.
Yeah, they're fantastic. It's just there's such amazing stuff that people are doing to use D&D for good. But yeah, talking about it and being open about it has been really important. And it was the same thing when the reason I started being open about how much I played D&D, actually, Satine Phoenix said to me, like, hey, there aren't many of us out here, meaning female DMs. There aren't a lot of us talking about it. And this is a few years back. And, she said that and it really resonated. And then that's changed in terms of people who are talking about it. Those numbers are really different. But
yeah, it's looking a lot better.
Yeah, it's great. I believe that the most recent gender split was like 55-45.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed that. I mean, obviously we're an all male group, sadly, but it's our other group, Tim's group, is actually a pretty good split like that. So
yeah.
It's just,
but sales wise, that's where the split was. I believe I may be slightly off on those numbers, but it was,
that's amazing,
really close to that.
I'm really happy that just D&D and tabletop games as a general have shed that idea of being a game for adolescent boys type of thing, because I really, at its core, like, one of my favorite things about just games in general was always the being able to go to friends and pull them in and wanting to share those experiences. And tabletop is the most inclusive thing I can think of that I've ever, because there literally is, as you said, you can come up with a game for anyone and bring them in, and it's magical that way.
Yeah, well, and also it's if you look at the people who are creating media in Hollywood, almost all of them came up on D&D and have talked about that the storytelling lessons you learn from these books about how to structure a story become, they land and resonate and become foundational in how you tell stories and what our media is now. So the storytellers now, 20, 30 years ago, were playing D&D. And I think that's a big piece of the resurgence now, is because people are going, oh, these stories fit this way. This all makes sense, but it trains you to understand that structure of building tension, building suspense, finding character arcs. That's all in there.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because in the format of a tabletop experience, your audience are also your actors. So, like, you're catering the experience, you're catering the story, you're catering the pacing, the events, everything with that immediate response. So, like, I think you learn how to read a table very quickly, and maybe that helps with creating content faster. That's more tailored. Now, does that really translate well, do you think, to kind of a more general audience, since you're working in, like, the larger scale? Yeah, absolutely.
I so often think about things I'm writing or developing as if they were campaigns.
Okay.
I'll think about what's the world, who are the forces in the world, what are the characters trying to achieve, what kind of quests can I send them on this week? And sometimes I'll go, oh, I haven't thought about what this group is doing, even though that's not our main focus. What is this group that we've forgotten about actually up to? Because that's what I would do in my campaign. I would go, oh yeah, that enemy group is still plotting. They're still doing this thing while the adventurers are over here doing this other thing. So it gives me an awareness of story, and things like the 3rd edition horror campaign book, Heroes of Horror, I think.
Okay.
Is if you're ever writing anything in the horror genre, just read that book. The lessons in it are so phenomenal in terms of storytelling and what makes a scary story work and what makes it scary.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. I use it every single day.
Oh, that's fascinating. So I know we're kind of tangent over here. I did want to kind of get back to the other topic that we're on. You were saying 1 in 4. Like, I mean, that still floors me that that's the statistic. I'm not trying to like hedge out like who is what, but I'm curious what all that entails. Like how specific are we getting with disabilities? Is it like I'm colorblind, for instance? Is that something that would be in that 1 in 4?
That would, because there are certain accommodations that would make things easier for you. Using different color sets or contrasting shapes, things like that. So I believe colorblind is included under that umbrella. I'm not 100% positive, but I do believe that is included in there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's
but disability is not a monolith. It's a very complex group of people, and everyone's an individual in it, and everybody has different needs, and two people can have the exact same condition and have completely different presentations or needs or experiences. So it's really a conversation with the people to figure out what works for them. But just accessibility in general is a right, and the ADA passed 30 years ago, and half the time places still aren't accessible. So
that's sadly true. Yeah,
that is sad but true. Yeah.
In our chat here, we got somebody talking about Airlaser's talking about in her campaign, there was a puzzle that was color based that presented the players, and it turned out one of the players was colorblind. Oops. I've run into that myself before I knew I was colorblind. I get beat all the time in this game called Puzzle Fighter, and it's a color based game. Didn't realize what the problem was. But it's not necessarily the most serious disability you can run into, but it does come up every once in a while with like sometimes the way books are laid out, or video games a lot of times, or where I kind of come into it.
Our current industry we're in, I imagine it comes up quite a bit.
Yeah, but I do see a lot of efforts being put out there to be more accessible. I mean, my interaction with it, of course, is color blindness, so I see them trying those modes in certain like first-person shooters or something like that. Like, what are some other examples besides the closed captioning and the braille dice, color blindness stuff? What sorts of things could people be doing to kind of facilitate a better environment for people?
So, I mean, the first thing is always talk to your players. Make it clear that if they have specific accessibility needs, to let you know. The next thing I would always suggest is I recommend that people take a break every 2 hours, just for the sake of everyone's health. Attention spans don't last that long, but at a 2 hour point, that allows anyone who has physical needs to get up and move around, readjust, come back and get focused again. Anyone with attention needs to go have a minute to go change their focus, things like that. So I always really strongly encourage breaks, and then tweak those to, more frequent, less frequent, whatever you need. Sometimes if you have players who are autistic, for example, sometimes autistic folks like to stim when they play, when they get excited. And that's usually a sign that it can be a sign that someone's uncomfortable, but it can also be a sign that someone's really excited and enjoying it. So it's a conversation about, what is okay and what are they comfortable with at the table. Does music help people focus, or is it distracting? Does it make it hard to understand people talking?
Right.
Yeah, sensory things. I also try to describe things in multiple senses. And if I give puzzles, I try and have multiple solves using different senses or different tools, whether it's a physical puzzle that can also be solved in game, or a word puzzle that can also be solved by doing something visual, things like that. But thinking in all sorts of senses is always a really great way to go.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah. And also just start thinking about including disabled characters in your world. To me, in a world where monsters are constantly attacking, it's far more likely that you're going to have a lot more disabled people than seem to exist in most fantasy stories. So I think that would probably be an even more accessible world. And if you want a great resource for how to put disabled characters into a game,
absolutely,
Evil Hat put out the Fate Accessibility Toolkit, which is just the most phenomenal book. It is the single best resource I have ever seen in any games or not, about disability. They got a whole bunch of different disabled folks to come in and write about their own experiences.
Oh, wow.
To design character mechanics based on their experiences.
Mhm.
And it's incredible. I read they released a sample of it. It was 40 pages. And usually we never get more than a paragraph about disability. So it's usually a throwaway, if that. And they had 40 pages and I started crying because it's so rare that anyone does that, because the material was so good. And I wrote them a message to thank them for what they were doing. And they said, oh, no, it's going to be over 120 pages. And I was just floored. It's extraordinary. So it's the Evil Hat Fate Accessibility Toolkit.
All right, let's type that out. If somebody could find a link to that's a mod, let's try to put that out there.
Yeah.
So Evil Hat Fate.
That sounds like a absolutely fantastic
Accessibility.
resource, and
somebody got it for me. Thank
exactly
you.
the kind of thing I think I will be starting to use myself, actually.
Awesome.
So thank you for turning us and our viewers onto that, because that sounds like a wonderful resource for building out your worlds and really kind of bringing more
it's
representation
incredible.
in front of everybody.
Well, thank you for bringing it into your game. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that you touched on a second ago, that people tend not to incorporate these elements in their game. And I think it's because people that don't have these experiences or aren't part of a marginalized group or anything along those lines just doesn't think about it. You know, like when you're putting together a game, you think about like, oh, who's going to be in there? Like even just as an all guy group, a lot of times there seems to be underrepresentation of female characters in a game. You know, like I'm trying to think of like the last time we had a like gay, lesbian, bisexual, whatever character in the game, just as a random person, not necessarily as a point of plot, you know. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's not until you sit and reflect on it, you go, oh wow, you know, this is something maybe we should think about a little bit more. You know, and to the chat here,
changing the default is mm-hmm. It takes some work, but it's really valuable. Even if it's something like having female goblins. Mm-hmm. Usually you don't see female goblins. But if mm-hmm. shift the motivation of a goblin coming in to raid something to, oh, they're trying to go, you know, well, male or female goblin, go get their kid, you know, mm-hmm. that's a great solution. Or, you know, I think D&D is really making an effort on that front too. They're really including a lot of queer characters and non-binary mm-hmm. characters in the canonical materials. You know, Coralon's always been all over the place in terms of gender, which is great. Yeah. But now they're really making an effort to be more inclusive on that front, on many fronts, and I really respect that.
Yeah, you can see it across the industry. I mean, there's like, especially in streams, I see a lot of the main streams, like the really popular ones. I'm assuming it's an effort being made to kind of throw out some more representation. So like on Critical Role, for instance, there's some better representation there. You know, and it's a really nice thing for people to be going out and doing this. Mm-hmm. You know, it's something we, you know, in subsequent games when we're kind of moving forward, I think, you know, maybe it's something we should be thinking about as players, maybe a couple of us kind of getting outside the box and trying something a little different. You know, I mean, people always try things that they're comfortable with initially, and then, you know, they grow a little bit. We were talking about before the stream, you know, people like to kind of go with what they're familiar with, and then the next character, actually, I think it was at the start of the stream here. Conversations blur together, but you know, the second character is always like radically different than yourself. So maybe that's a place people can go.
Yeah. You usually got to get the murder hoboing out of your system and then move on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes it's fun to come back to.
Yeah, occasionally.
But you know, I think Adventure Zone is doing a really phenomenal job. Especially right now, they've always really made the effort, and they've made missteps, and they've also come back and said, "Hey, we made a mistake here, and we want to fix it." And I really, really respect that.
Well, I think it's some of it too. I think people have to be willing to try. You know, like people are the one big lesson that we go back to all the time on this show is that it teaches you to take risks, accept that you're going to fail. It's most of the time you're going to fail, but what you do with the failure is what's important. And in this case, you know, try to make the effort, try to reach out, try to be more inclusive, try to present something that's outside your comfort zone, maybe. And then if you screw it up, and you probably will, learn from that and make your next effort better.
Yeah. Well, and also on that front, if you are following people on social media, follow people who are not like you. You know, follow gamers of color, follow queer gamers, follow disabled gamers. You know, just start learning from listening to other people's experience. And it's astonishing how much your world opens up. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the other things that the internet has been phenomenal for in terms of the gaming world is opening us up to other people who are not like us and living different lives. And you know, I think, but we're still one community, which is pretty amazing. So
absolutely. Well, that's one thing I think we may try to start doing here. Like we're trying to build a bigger, broader community here on our channel with Discord and all of our other areas. One thing I noticed though is that I don't have a lot of people of color, at least on my list. Like I'm not seeing channels necessarily popping up doing this. Like the joke when I was at the conventions walking around was like, oh, it's another white guy with a podcast. You know, it's like, okay, it feels like it's just, you know, white guys with brown hair and a beard, you know, usually glasses running podcasts, you know, and like, I don't know if it's just a bubble, you know, you're only seeing the same types of content because you're talking to the same people, or if it's maybe that the representation isn't there just yet. Do you have any streams that are really good about that representation?
Yeah, well, I mean, Rivals of Waterdeep is phenomenal. Okay. That entire stream is people of color, and it's incredible. Tales from the Mist is an incredible stream of women and non-binary folks with quite a few gamers of color. Heroes Without Limits is a channel that is focused on disabled players. You look at people like Critical Bard or Dungeon Commander.
Awesome.
Or, you know, there are so many people out there creating incredible content. And it just, once you start following a few people, the world just opens up. I do think a lot of the reason that you don't see as many creators of color is I think there is a discrimination factor there, and I think there's also a safety factor there. Yep. I think that often spaces that are safe for, you know, straight or cisgender or white folks are not safe for marginalized folks.
Right. And I think it's easy for people to miss that concept, or they hear that and they say, well, they should feel safe around me, you know, but it's not necessarily that, right? There's more to it than just saying I'm a nice person, right? There's steps you have to make to be accommodating, things you have to recognize about just the layout of culture, you know, and what you may be inadvertently presenting.
Yeah, unconscious bias and, you know, people get upset about the term privilege, but privilege is a term of relativism. It's a comparative term. It's not saying that you've had an easy life. It's saying that your experiences would be made more complex by belonging to a marginalized group.
Right.
Which over and over is true.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so one of the things that I really try and do is when I'm on charity streams, it's really important to me that I won't do a stream unless they also will bring on someone from a marginalized community as well. So awesome. I bond myself to somebody else, and you know, because I've established myself in the community, I love taking people. I love playing with Honey and Dice. Honey and Dice is incredible. She's doing amazing work and creating phenomenal content, but doesn't have quite as much, hasn't been doing this quite as long and doesn't have the same audience I have. So I love to boost her stuff. Or, you know, I have Blind Temple, who's a blind DM, who's incredible. So just getting those people out there when I'm getting out there is really important to me. And that's one way that I've found to try and support other marginalized creators.
Well, that's really fascinating. Just the concept of a blind DM, you know, like the types of stories you tell often are kind of based on, you know, like how you think. And I would imagine the way you think is changed by, the absence of a sense. There's probably a richness, in the
I do want to
auditory
make
world.
one quick note, which is most disabilities that we think of as binary, so being blind, being deaf, being in a wheelchair, are actually not binary. So 90% of blind folks have some sight.
Right,
Many deaf folks have some hearing. Not all deaf folks can have a cochlear implant or want one. That's a whole other conversation. But many wheelchair users are like me, are ambulatory. So sometimes I need my chair, sometimes I don't. So those are just things I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
but
it was
I
a
want to
great
put
point.
out there because that's a huge misconception about
absolutely.
disability.
Yeah, I actually worked when I was a massage therapist, and one of the massage therapists was, legally blind. But he'd be able to tell me when I got a new haircut, from across the room. So it's clear that there are gradations to this, for sure. I mean, the point I was kind of getting to though is that I think it's interesting. I'm just kind of generally interested in the way people think, and like how their worldview is kind of shaped and like what things influence that. And thinking about how I kind of perceive the world and what things I bring into a game session, what things I call on. I'm very visual. So like for me, it's like visual and touch are like my strong senses. So like I tend to bring those into my descriptions a lot more often. And it would be really interesting to run into somebody who is running a game, kind of steering the descriptions the majority of the time and seeing how it differs from like the way I would do it.
Yeah, well, Temple has played on a number of different streams now, and he also does Ask a Blind DM Q&As often. He's Blind
cool.
Temple on Twitter, and so if you ever have questions, he's incredibly open about that stuff. But what you were touching on about being visual and tactile, there are really three kinds of learners, and so if you can figure out what your table is as a DM, this is a really great shortcut for engaging your players, which is
Here we go.
how people describe things. Your visual, your auditory, or your kinesthetic, which is movement and touch based. So visual players will describe things as how you see them, what things look like, colors, shapes, lighting, things like that. They'll say, I see this, my character sees that. Auditory players, and they'll often take a lot of notes too, because they like to see
the reinforcement.
Kinesthetic players do too, because of the emotion of it, which for me is how I learn. But auditory players will do a lot of listening, and they'll describe things as what you're hearing, how something sounds, things like that. And then kinesthetic players will tend to be like maps and minis players. They want to move things, they like to touch things. So if you can figure out what your players are, you can steer how you describe things toward those specific styles, and it really engages your players a whole lot.
Yeah, we're getting some chat here that people kind of running into this as well. Saying that when one of their sister, when she plays, doesn't remember things unless she writes it down while they're playing. So she takes
I'm the same way.
Tons and tons of notes.
I take ridiculous notes, and my notes are color coded.
Oh wow!
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Tim's our note
I'm a
taker.
fellow note. Yeah, I am a fellow note taker, and I haven't graduated to colored pencils, but I might have to now.
Yeah, I do blue for locations, red for characters or enemies, green for treasures.
That's genius.
Yeah, it's like you just have the shortcut of looking at it, and you can tell exactly where you've been and where you're
You've
going.
changed my note taking life, I think, actually, right now.
Welcome to the club.
I'm definitely going to start employing color coding.
I stole the blue from Final Fantasy because you would get the place name,
Yes.
get your blue text, and you could just log exactly where you had to go.
Nice.
And so that's my little color coding hack.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah,
Which is obviously not effective for colorblind players, which I always apologize for when I prep on stream. But yeah, you could do it with shapes, I suppose, or underlining styles. So there's a lot of ways you could switch it to make it accessible.
Absolutely.
As well.
Now, I mean, this kind of brings me to one of your shows here. So like Monsters and Fables, I was doing a little prep work. I hadn't seen it before. So like I turned it on today, and I was telling you before the stream that I sat down with the intention of watching an episode. And before I knew it, there were no more episodes. And one of the things that really grabbed me about it was just the way it flowed, the imagery that was evoked, in my mind. And I don't normally have that. Like normally I have a hard time visualizing something, even though I say I'm a visual descriptor, I have a hard time visualizing scenes. But when I was listening to you guys, the flow of the action, coupled with like the music and like just the quickness of the acting that was going and the integration of the roles, it was very seamless. And it just made it, easy to binge, obviously, because, before I knew it had been like hours. I'm like, oh, hey, okay, there we go. But it really just stood out as something really awesome. So like if our chat hasn't seen it, go do yourself a favor, go check it out. It's amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I wanted to, with that project, really kind of bring the TV producer experience into D&D, because I felt like there was a way to really do a more cinematic version of this storytelling. And to go back to inclusive casting, it was very important to me that cast was very diverse. We had 2 disabled players. We had a majority minority cast.
It's cool.
We had half women, so that was really, it was not something that was, we didn't cast anybody specifically for that reason, but it's something I'm really proud of, because I think we showed a lot of different types of gamers. Oh, absolutely.
One of the things I was curious about is it was so smooth. It almost felt like it was scripted, like that the events were already like re-edited or something. It was just perfect, like with the music integration and everything. Like, you're welcome. It made me kind of wonder if that was a good way to kind of, present this kind of gaming experience. There's a lot of times, a live stream is the raw scene, like the table talk, the experience of hanging out with your friends, in this case with the stream, chatting with people, making the rolls, doing the tactical movement, and involving yourself with the rules. But what I was seeing on this stream, and what could be interesting, I think, is to take the distillation of an episode and then narrativize it and then react it, and present that as like a more condensed version. Yeah, we tried to get it, because we did edit the show. There was, there were definitely moments that were not exciting, or where we were doing rules lookups that took a while. Oh wow! Yeah, I things like that, and so so we thank goodness I had just the most amazing team working so hard on that, because we were in a crunch. We were releasing an episode every other day leading up to the descent, and that was we were literally editing. I know that Giles, our director, who was doing some of the editing, most of the editing, was doing like 40-hour. I don't even know. It was he did 4 days straight. It was, and I was working on a TV show that was shooting at the same time. So I would leave work and then I would go to his house and we would work all night. I would go home and shower and go back to work. But it was we really were working really hard. So I'm really glad we got it out. But yeah, we wanted to make it feel like a regular game, but be able to take out some of that extra stuff that just isn't necessarily as engaging in a stream. And I know some of the podcasts do that as well. But I think that it made it into a, it's a little more compact. The episodes were like 45 minutes. And I'm so glad that it flowed and you enjoyed it. It really did.
Yeah, they worked really, really, really hard on it. Omar also edited.
We clearly had an amazing team. And you were saying before the stream, the size of the team. Could you tell our audience a little bit of that? I
think by the end, we had about 27 people who had worked on it, because we filmed it in a soundstage. We had a full set built. We had a composer. Actually, we had 2 composers working on the music. It was original music for the show. We had an artist doing the opening. We had an artist doing the character portraits. We had a bunch of PAs. We had 4 cameras while we were filming. What am I forgetting? Makeup artists, standard TV crew stuff. So it really was a full production. And I'm so grateful that everyone came and and did that. And then, people on the logistics side of things to make sure everything went smoothly in terms of paperwork and blah, blah, blah. So it's a very different experience.
I believe it.
Than a stream you can do from your living room. But I think that's what's great right now about tabletop and streaming is that you can have this wide variety of storytelling forms.
Right.
You can have animation, and you can have podcasts, and you can have serious, heavy stuff, and you can have really, really goofy stuff, and you can have 2-minute things, and you can have, it's infinite, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's been kind of an interesting thing. We've got our Chaos in the channel here. He's one of our viewers. They run another stream that they're doing their first D&D game, and they're streaming it. So
congratulations, that's awesome.
Yeah, they're doing a great job, and they're learning the game. They're figuring things out along the way, and they're trying to go tackle the challenge of streaming it. Which, having done some of that ourselves, it's tough. It changes the dynamic of the table quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to talk too about the difference between a streamed game and a home game, because it's a very different experience. A streamed game, when you have an audience, you want to give your audience, you want to show that you value their time and give them a good experience and put on a good show, and you might do things differently than you would if you were at a home game in your and I think it's really important for people to remember that there's a difference when they come and do their home games and they're new to the hobby, because they'll see something that's very polished and very finished, and players who are performing and feel like they need to do that. But if I stream some of my home games as they are, if I put a camera up in the living room when we're playing, it's a totally different experience.
It's a different vibe, yeah.
Without a doubt, it's very different.
It's been go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'd wanted to ask, kind of along those same lines, the streaming and playing in a home game, in terms of actually then taking D&D and almost turning it into more of, like you said with your show, you're in a television-like setting. Has that changed the way, like kind of with that full production, of how you now think about a game, how you structured the game? Did it cause you to, knowing you would be under those different circumstances, to approach kind of going about the crafting of the game versus like as you would a home game?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're doing something like that, you know that you're going to need to finish the story we were shooting 2 hours to 2.5 hours per episode. So you knew you needed a beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
You knew you needed to finish the combats. You knew you needed to have a satisfying stopping point. And so you had to think about it in those episodic arcs, rather than kind of letting it be a fully freewheeling game. And so you could kind of look at the clock and see where you needed to be in terms of being on track. And, we did do a little bit of like goalposty, like we want to get to a good stopping point for here, because we know we have other stories we want to tell. So we don't want this one story to be the entire series.
Sure.
But that was sort of a unique situation to that kind of a show. When you're dealing with a very compressed time, it's a different experience.
Yeah, that would be very strange.
Yeah, it's a really different animal.
Yeah, it's already hard when you have like a 3-hour window or like a one shot to prepare for. But yeah, I mean, your episodes, like you were saying, were like 40 minutes ish, 45, somewhere in that range. And that's a hard window, especially when it comes to dice rolling and, people taking their turns, looking up spells and stuff.
Well, and that's why we did shoot the longer sessions
2 hour,
and then trim them out. But that shows you just how much there was. And some of it was great. In fact, my favorite line of the entire thing had to get thrown out because it wasn't serving the story, which was at one point, TJ presented Rachel with the choice of, oh gosh, what was it? It was, hang on, I've got to see if I can find exactly what it was.
While she's looking that up, for those of you who don't know what Monsters and Fables is, they're playing fairy tale characters, or, like there's Aladdin, there's, excuse me, a little clear my throat there. But, they have like characters, like the Little Red Riding Hood situations happening, like stuff like that in your standard D&D world. And it was really clever. It was a neat twist on it. But anyway, you found what you were looking for. So.
Oh, I did. As soon as I started searching, I remembered at one point she was presented with the option of retreating, or TJ said, or do you really want to go murder spree? And she looked at him and she goes, I choose murder spree.
So good.
It was so good. And it had to go because it wasn't helping what was happening in the story. And so really, I think that was, with editing, that's what you do, is you really try and choose. You only put in things that are going to move the story forward.
Right. And it's an interesting thing to kind of figure out, like what you're wanting to do with the show. Like with our situation, we originally set out saying, like, we just want to play our game, but we think it's a good game that people would be entertained by. And we kind of went with the idea that we didn't want to really change the format too much. We wanted to stay kind of true to our table and just bring people in to be part of it. Whereas I see some other channels are going very heavy fan interaction to the point where it's like the primary mover and shaker of the story. And then I see other ones that don't interact at all with the chat and it's just pure narrative. And then you get all kinds of different styles kind of mixed in there. And it's interesting, seeing how people are kind of navigating the space, like what viewers are looking for. Obviously, it's not one viewer out there. People are wanting different types of media. But it's interesting what you can showcase of what gaming is. On one hand, it's nice to be able to show it's sitting around telling jokes with your friends, having a laugh while you're playing a game. It's another one to say, like you said before, taking it real seriously and, getting a really complex, deep character dive and, dealing with really rich story arcs and things. It's fascinating because, I jumped around on some of your content. Like one of the things I remember watching was at Gamehole Con, you ran the one-shot thing there. And they're diving through a shopping mall and buying bags from...
It's a shopping mall that was a domain of dread, yeah.
And
it was a literal hell dimension.
I would believe that is an absolute hell, but
for some people it is.
Yep,
it's fascinating.
For me, it absolutely is.
It's fascinating.
I had teenagers that had worshipped Bashaba, who basically turned to them and said, "Hey, you want to worship me forever? Okay, let's see how you feel in a few thousand years," and stuck them in a domain of dread in a mall, and. Now, did various things like turn the couple into an Eden, which the couple was constantly on again, off again, fighting, loving.
Beautiful. We got an important question in the chat here I want to get to. So no apostrophe
or no apostrophe question?
Yeah. Is there a concern that editing sets an unreal expectation for aspiring DMs and players? I would say absolutely, but go ahead and your line.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why Monsters and Fables, I think, felt we really tried to make feel more like a TV show than a traditional stream. Our players were really skilled, and obviously that was a cast of actors. That was a cast of seasoned working actors. So already you were dealing with players who were on a different tier than a lot of new players are. But we were looking at it as a show, as entertainment, and not necessarily a traditional game. But I think people talk about being so intimidated by something like Critical Role, or Adventure Zone does editing. We've talked about that. But I think it's, again, this comes back to that idea of the stream versus the home game, and having those conversations and being open about, when I'm on stream, it's going to be a different experience than when I'm playing at home. Which is part of why I try and talk about those expectations and the reality of it. A lot of us who are doing this are seasoned, trained performers.
I really wish that. I mean, I do and I don't. I wish that there was footage of our early games so that we can present it and say, look, guys, don't judge. You're about to watch a shit show, but this is where we started, and this is where it's okay to start. I mean, I'm embarrassed by this, but it's how we got here.
But also kind of cherish
give
it.
yourself some, give yourself a chance. Let yourself, like we said before, make mistakes, make them often, and figure out what you did and grow from it.
The other thing that I think is really important for new DMs to know, or people who are watching these streams and then playing at home and feeling intimidated by this to know, is that our game is not your game. And what is special about your game is what you're bringing to it and what players are bringing to it. And that specific alchemy of figuring out what is fun for all of you. Because what's fun for all of you may be doing a shopping episode or doing a mountain climb or, something that is not necessarily what other groups would enjoy. Maybe you're really tactical. Maybe you don't care about voices. Maybe you want to talk about your characters in the third person. Maybe you want to do them in the first person. Like, finding what's special for your game is what makes it magic. It's not trying to be these other shows and characters and players. Right.
Yeah. And we talked about it a lot of times on the show, and it's, if you're having fun, you're doing it right.
Exactly.
And learn from those. I mean, absolutely steal from everybody. When somebody does a great storyline, take it, tweak it to make it your own, and throw it in your game. Absolutely. If there's characters, imitate the characters. I brought Angus MacDonald into my game. Absolutely. I had a hello sirs all the time. Completely. What's special about having this access is we're getting to have these ideas that we might not have had, we wouldn't have known about without these shows. So learn from it and then make it your own, make it special for what works for your group.
Exactly. Yeah. So we got a lot of people in the chat that are new to the game, it sounds like. So, I just really want to stress that. Just make it your game. Don't worry about what other people are doing necessarily. If you like something people are doing, learn from it, pick it up if you can. You're not going to be great at it the first time you do it, and that's great. That's fine. Just enjoy the game for what it is, the experience with your friends.
Yeah, I think what Lauren is saying here too is that performative D&D is such a new thing. It is like professional sports. You can watch an NFL game and take inspiration from the way they play and then go home and have fun playing football. That's absolutely right. But also, a lot of us have been playing this for, decades.
Right.
And have learned from, just so many different source materials and novels and things like that. There is the texture of the world and the nuances of it come through that time and learning and experience.
Sure does.
And you learn the tricks. So don't expect your first game out. You level up the same way your characters do. You have to start as a level 1 DM. And then you'll level up really quickly in the beginning, and then it'll slow down. But when you level up at the high levels, it's big leaps.
And as you were saying earlier, really kind of pushing to look at other streams or other kinds of media that are written from other perspectives. Which is something that just occurred to me earlier, is like seeking out those things outside of your bubble can do wonders to spark the mind, to spark creativity, to give you new ways of approaching ideas or problems or plot points. It's the best medicine if you're feeling a little stagnant with your current game or want to shake it up somehow. Like, go somewhere you've never checked out before. Check out a new stream or someone who has an entirely different perspective to you, and you might find some pretty interesting stuff to play with.
And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go outside of fantasy too. Go read other books, learn mythology, learn about what's happening in the other books exist. I know it's shocking. But go read The Hot Zone and then get inspired by that idea of a plague and turn it into a magical plague. And I mean, you can have the spell plague, or you can have you can go and do the medical stuff that they put out the other year, but you immediately have a setting. Now you have a story. There's so much out there that can influence how you approach this stuff
Mhm.
And where you get inspiration from.
Now, in chat here, our own tech guy here, Clint, he wrote something I want to kind of directly ask him about. So he's saying DMing intimidates him right now. As a player of almost 25 years, he still has doubts about running the game. Now, I happen to know he did run a game for us at one point, and I still really remember it being great. I had a great time with it. But there are a lot of players like that. I've been on a hiatus from running things for a while myself. And when you haven't done it recently, or you haven't done it, it's easy to make it out to be much harder than it is. That you have to be perfect, that the DMs that you play with somehow are magical and like perfect in every way, shape, and form. It's not the case. All you got to learn, the one main skill I think you have to have is the ability to say yes and. The end. Like whatever's happening throughout your script, and just improvise. You know, like if you can get good at that, you
basically
can
go into a game with nothing prepared. If you have players that you can lean on, throw one hook in front of them, and they're going to they're going to start something, and it's going to give you an idea for someone who comes over and says, "Hey, I need this thing," and then they start going on that, and what will they find along the way? But I mean, the very first thing I'd say to anyone who's thinking about DMing is go watch Matt Colville's Running the Game series. Start at episode 1. And if he can't convince you that anybody can DM, watch it again. Anybody can DM. And DMs may make it look easy, but the reality is most of the time we're just going, wee!
Yeah. Like well, it's collaborative.
And
I think it's what
and
people
with the
forget.
Tools we have now too, you know, to have D&D Beyond, to have Cobalt Fight Club or OneNote to organize, or Improved Initiative, any of those things, you can just have everything on a laptop or a tablet. You have the entire universe at your disposal. You don't have to worry about knowing exactly what monsters are everywhere and how they stack up and how they balance. You don't have to do all that. You can figure that can get done, you know, practically for you.
Now, exactly. It's really easy to forget that, like, as a DM, that it's really up to you how much you want to kind of put into it. And like some of those people you hear where they say, like, you know, how much effort they put into it, and it's not necessarily because they feel like they're obligated to. It's because the passion that they just have for it, and they really want to flesh it out that much that they go to those lengths. But it can sound intimidating though when you hear some of those stories that everyone likes to tell about their process.
Yeah, or start with like a really simple short module. I mean, I think the best module I've found for getting people into the game for players is something called a Wild Sheep Chase, and it's a grand total of about 5 pages. It's a perfect adventure. The players can fill it in however they want. I've run it probably 15 times, and I've never had it go the same way twice. It's always different. It just allows for so much creativity. And it's simple. You need to know 4 monsters, I think, over the course of it. And that's it.
Wow.
That's all they're going to ever face.
Well, that's cool.
And they may not have to fight them all, too. So it's a phenomenal module, and there's a sequel called Wolves of Welton.
You said the first was called A Wild Sheep Chase?
A Wild Sheep Chase, and it's free.
Nice.
So if you're afraid of DMing, take a look at that. It's so short, it's so simple, it's so clean. You have first scene, second scene, third scene done. And you can run it in between 2.5 to 4 hours is about where it lands.
Oh, that's nice. So one of our chatters here, R Chaos, is saying that he's having a hard time going back to running games because he tried it once and to the story, it felt railroaded. Now that's a common thing, especially when you're getting started. I mean, if you look at a lot of modules and things, they are kind of on rails. Standard structure for storytelling. If you're a writer, the instinct is going to be to dictate what's going to happen. So that is a natural place to start. And if your players aren't used to running into that, they may balk at it pretty quickly. But don't let that be discouraging. Like what Jim was saying is pick up something that's prefabbed, learn it, and then try to give that a run. And get the feeling for all the other things that you have to do, and then look at how it's structured. Like, how did they go about setting up the way the story unfolded in a way that was guided but loose enough for you to have player interaction with it, where they don't feel the rails. And I think that will get you over that hump. Once you get some rapport with your players, some trust in yourself, that you can handle the mechanics of the game, you can handle the narration, you can deal with it, then at that point you should feel more confident in yourself to write your own and start to dissect what that process is like. Because there is a process to it. And I'm guilty of doing the railroad thing when I first started. I think every DM is. Like I said before,
I've told this story before, but the first time I did about 4 months preparing, my players were going to a town. I made travel brochures for them. I had a playlist that every single building in the town had its own song. I really lost many hours of my life to planning this thing. We were doing a rotating DM situation in that game. What the previous DM didn't tell me in advance is that we were going to blow up the place that we were before that, and we had blown up the place before that. So I had my players run in, and the very first thing they asked to do was talk to the mayor and the town council, which of course I hadn't planned for.
Yeah, naturally.
So immediately my plans were gone. I had to throw them out, and I actually had to say to my players, look, I didn't have that prepared. And that was the best lesson, because I learned that no matter how thoroughly you think you're prepared for something, your players will do something else that you don't expect. They're going to throw you off. And so learning to just go, okay, and roll with it. If that happened now, I would have made up a town council and would have gone from there. But at that point, I wasn't ready for that. But I think rails, you feel rails when the DM is saying no.
Right.
So it's, I want to go do this thing. Well, you can't do that thing. The store is closed. The object is locked away. No, you have to get this particular thing. And so finding a way to say yes and or no but is the way to do it. But use your no buts very sparingly.
Yeah, and make sure it's interesting too. If you do that, like if you shoot somebody down, make sure that the thing you're offering them is something worth doing. That they're going to have fun with. That keeps people going, because you want to encourage people to take those risks. Just like we want DMs to take those risks. As a DM, you have to set up situations where your players are inclined to have a good time. Like that's your job as a DM, is to facilitate fun. At the end of the day. So, just try to keep that in mind when you're kind of running your stuff, and make sure that you're also having fun, because your players feed off your energy.
It seems like your players aren't. The first thing you need to do is have session 0 and talk about what kind of campaign you're running, and expectations and boundaries and things like that. Session 0s are so important. But you also need to check in with your players as the campaign continues. And I tend to do that very frequently in the beginning, and then less frequently as the campaign goes on. But, say, hey, what was fun? What's not working for you? What can we do better? What would you like to have more of or less of? And that way they feel like they have some control of what's happening in terms of all of that. Yeah,
we had a question that kind of popped through. I can't remember who said it, but they're asking about what sorts of boundaries should people discuss during that session 0. Now, we've touched on this on a previous episode, the Wisdom Check, just kind of getting a sense of what things people are comfortable with is a big one. What types of genres, what types of scenes, what TV rating you expect the game to be. Are you looking for high fantasy? Or are you looking for gumshoe? What is it that you're kind of wanting to get at? If you come to a DM and the player's got a character that just totally does not fit the vision of what you're going to do, which way are you going to bend? Is the player going to bend or the DM's going to bend? And that's stuff you should probably work out with the group at that session 0. But I'm sure there are other things that you probably can interject here as well.
Yeah, I always play with safety tools. And if you're looking for some resources for that, Kiana S on Twitter has an amazing collection of the safety tools. So I use, depending on where I'm playing, X-Card or the Lexington technique. I also talk about where my players' lines are, if there are certain things they absolutely don't want in game. And I give them a kind of an open door to privately discuss anything like a phobia. So if I have a player who's arachnophobic, I'm not going to put spiders in the game. We're not going to do an Underdark campaign. Just setting those boundaries as well. I also talk about character, like combat lethality. Are you okay with your character dying or not?
Yeah,
are you okay with your character dying if it's epic? Do you want to have, do you want to play it, AD&D style and have 6 characters in your back pocket and have it be a really dangerous world? Or are you going to get really upset if your character dies and want to leave the campaign? Does that ruin the fun of the game for you?
Right.
So that's an important conversation I have in my session 0.
Party conflict.
Yep. How do we handle that? For me, I generally don't let players PvP. I, especially with newer players, don't allow chaotic neutral alignment or evil alignments, just because newer players really struggle with doing that and not
destroying the game,
taking the fun away from the other players at the table.
It's a difficult line.
And that's also where I talk about access needs. That's another session 0 topic. So, and then just like I have my standards that I don't have in my games. So.
We just had a hilarious hiccup on the captioning.
Oh no!
Apparently, Tim said Megadeth in Berlin.
Well, there you go.
Nice.
Just my mind just blew up for a second.
Yeah, I saw him in '88 when I was 4.
Nice.
That's fantastic.
So I mean, these are really important things to really hammer out with your group. We talk about it a lot of times. It's the social contract of your table. Just getting in there, realizing you're a group, you're a team. There are going to be some things you have to hammer out with one another to figure out what's fun for your group, what's safe for your group, and how it's going to work out. I mean, Dustin and I, a lot of times when he's on the show, we talk about the LARP experience and running a big LARP. And the reason why we go to that all the time is we had so many players. We had like 300 plus players, plus, across the world, people can come to our game because it was like a networked game. So you constantly had different types of players coming in with different expectations, different experiences with other GMs, interactions with certain players that they didn't like or did like. It was a very heavy PvP game, so there's a lot of chance for things to go really badly. It was a vampire LARP, so
I was going to say,
that's how that goes. Everybody's very evil and out for themselves. So it was ripe for these sorts of things to explode in your face, and very often they did. So it was a lot of the job was literally just trying to keep peace and trying to find ways to facilitate people getting along, so that you can have a shared game experience that was pleasant. And those lessons really translate.
Nordic LARP has a lot of hand signal work where are you okay with this interaction? I'm sort of on the fence of where this is going. Okay, I'm not okay anymore. Like, let's stop this. I'm not good with this being game anymore. And using things like that, the red, green, yellow system or something like that in your game is great, especially if you're playing in something like Ravenloft or some setting that goes really dark and twisted. Lay out those boundaries really clearly before you go into it.
I think it's important for Dark Sun as well, as there's some themes there, slavery and cannibalism and some other things that could be real major problems in a game session with certain people that aren't expecting those things to come up, or that aren't just interested in those topics whatsoever, or if they're just handled incorrectly, which is very easy to screw those concepts up.
I've definitely had experience at table made really uncomfortable by stuff that was happening in the game, and that really just takes the fun out of it. I was at a table where in a campaign where every female character was a prostitute or evil, and I just got to a point where I was like, I can't. This is just not enjoyable anymore. And even when I started kind of trying to make fun of it and subtly say, hey, this is not cool, it still was like, that was not a conversation I felt like I should be having to have at that table. That was a game that didn't have a session 0. And I did talk to the DM about it, but it didn't really change.
No, it's not always going to, sadly. But the good news is, now in this day and age, we know that there are more people playing the game that we can go meet up different tables with.
Exactly.
Whereas when we were getting started, it was like, hey, I think you're the 5 only players of this game. And I guess we were stuck with each other, you know?
But your parents didn't decide that this was satanic. I'm still wondering how that one started.
Oh, man. But
just like as basics at most of my tables, if I'm playing a standard kind of Forgotten Realms type game, I just automatically go, no sexual assault, no romantic relationships between characters, so without consent of both players, out of game. You know, you step aside and you say, hey, is everybody okay with this turning into a thing? And where are you comfortable with it being in game? I generally stay away from child abuse. That sort of, and animal abuse. Those are just kind of standard fare because I've had enough people who have been uncomfortable with all of those. So that's my checklist, unless I have a group that specifically is wanting a game that's real dark.
Yeah, and it's also something important for streamers. What's good at your table, you need to expand your table to the audience as well. You know, so be mindful. Yes, audiences are self-selecting, but be mindful of these things. It's not necessary to go out there and be edgy all the time.
And it's certainly not
doesn't really serve the hobby. Yeah. So that's these are some pitfalls people I think just wander into very easily. Now we intended to actually kind of get in and let you plug some of your shows here. So before we kind of get too deep into the hour here, let's go ahead and see what you're working on these days.
I am part of Beyond Heroes on D&D Beyond. So Wednesdays from 2 to 4 Pacific. I get to run adventure, like run around with the most incredible group of people. And again, those are very self-contained episodes, so you can hop in anywhere at this point, and the audience gets to vote on the title of the next episode, so they choose of where we're going next. And it's just, I honestly can't say enough about that show. I look forward to it all week, and I'm so sad it's only 2 hours and once a week. I love every second of it.
I would kill for 2 hours once a week.
it's so great. So that's on the D&D Beyond Twitch channel. I'm starting up the D&D book club, so we're gonna have a Discord shortly, but if anyone wants to join the book club, this is gonna be our first book. We're gonna go read D&D novels. We're gonna read one a month. We're gonna start with Elric. It's Elric of Melniboné.
Nice.
So Michael Moorcock, and this is the J.G. Ballard collection with the Alan Moore forward. That's going to be the February book, and then in March we're going to go to Dragonlance.
That's how I got my start. Dragonlance was all the way.
Because there are so many great storytelling lessons and so much world building and just so much awesome stuff. So anyone who wants to hop on, just go ahead and grab a copy of the book and join the club. And we'll talk about it on my Twitch channel, which is DreamWispGen, and on the Discord, which will be up soon, and I'll put up on Twitter. What else am I doing? I don't know. I do a fair amount of charity. Those are fun. I am developing a TV series, so that's exciting.
Ooh. Anything we can hear about, or is it all?
Yeah, I mean, it's been announced, but I am adapting Lights' Skin and Earth for TV.
Very cool.
So we're in the process of working on that, and hopefully we get to take that out to networks soon. And
nice, very
exciting. Good luck with that.
It's a really cool world. So talk about a place where D&D has been helping me prepare that. It's awesome. It's a very cool, like, sci-fi fantasy story with beautiful art. So
nice. Yeah, because a lot of times people we were talking about earlier get kind of stuck in their rut with just fantasy, high fantasy in particular. So getting a little taste of something different.
Yeah. Well, play other games. I mean, that's there were so many amazing games out there. 10 Candles changed the way I DM forever. I played it once and it blew my mind. And then now I play it whenever I can. But
I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, I don't get it.
What specifically is going on with that?
it is a one-shot, zero prep RPG, where the players all know going in that their characters are going to die.
Okay.
And there are 10 candles, and the candles serve as time limit mechanic. So when all the candles are out, the game is over. And the premise is that 10 days ago they changes game to game. You design it in the game session itself. You also create your characters during the game. It's very ritualized.
That's interesting.
But so you create the characters, and it has some cool mechanics that I've stolen and put into my D&D game. And then as you progress, you do a series of scenes, and at the end of each scene, you're fighting for a dice pool. And the dice pool is not to win combat, it's to win narrative rights. So it's to describe what's behind the door. Or, the DM starts out with one dice, and one die, and the players have the rest. And then as each scene progresses, the DM gets another one, and then another one. So the narrative always will ultimately shift to the DM, but how you get there is balanced. It's so brilliant, and you play it in a pitch black room, and it's
cool.
Just the greatest game. But it taught me how to give up control of the story to my players.
That's an important one.
Yeah. I will let my players describe many, many things in my world. They can do a lot of the legwork. That's something people don't realize. We talked about that, I think, on our maybe second or third episode of this. The player DM dynamic,
collaborative storytelling.
When do you have the right to step in? And the answer is pretty much anytime everyone's okay with it. But getting out there and being part of the story, understanding that you play a role in the creative process, even as a player, a huge role, in fact. Yeah. And as a DM, realizing, yes, you are kind of in charge, but also it's important for you to relinquish some of that space and some of that, scene time, let people run with it a little bit.
And a lot of times your story and campaign will be better for it, because it'll lead you places and lead you plot ideas you would never have had on your own. I can speak for sure to that.
Yeah. Well, and the players will tell you what's good. They'll tell you what they want to do in the game and what they're, they're not going to describe something that they don't want to go do, that, that they don't want to see. If you ask them what there's a rumor of in town, and they give you something, it's not going to be the thing they have no interest in exploring. Right. They're going to give you the thing that they want to go check out, that they think there might be something neat there.
And that's a really important lesson. Yeah, because it's a clever tactic as a DM, is to, seed a few things out there. If people don't bite on it, just let it go. Restructure. If you see they suddenly get latched onto some random building that has no importance to your story whatsoever, guess what's important to the story now? You don't want to make it too transparent, to where they lose the enjoyment of, suspending disbelief. But if your players are interested in something, make it interesting, and that's basically that plus improvising. You've got your DM thing figured out. Rules are important to a degree, but those are the two main things, and you're good. Yeah. So with
and rules can be disregarded. I mean, rules,
they can be, yeah.
And the thing is, as long as I've been playing, I look something up in the game. I still ask my players what their spells do, or what the saves are. No one memorizes these things. I mean, I'm sure someone memorizes, but no one knows, all of this. We all are. That's okay. That's normal. It's absolutely normal to have to look things up. So don't feel the pressure of having to memorize, thousands of pages of rules and stat blocks and things. Absolutely. Now, for those who haven't seen the shows you do, can you give kind of like a running synopsis, like what they can expect, like a little taster? Yeah. So Beyond Heroes, it's tough to describe because it changes, but it's always going to be an adventure with really high stakes. We've played in a bunch of different worlds at this point. We've been through everything. We've been through Dark Sun. We went back to a D&D world.
Cool.
We've been through Dragonlance. We've been through Ravenloft. We've been all over. We really are. We're spelljamming a little and planescaping a little. But it's a great cast of characters and players and a phenomenal DM.
Yeah,
Todd Kenrick is our DM, and he's just incredible.
Cool guy.
He's a master at what he does.
Yeah, he is.
But it's a group of players always going up against something much bigger than them that they shouldn't be taking on, and they're going to go kick it in the shin. Yeah, next week, Lauren pointed out, next week we're going to Wildmount. So
Oh, exciting.
Amazing.
Picking that right up.
Yeah.
And so for the people
exciting.
watching here at the chat, this is 5th edition, right?
It is 5th edition.
100% sure that's the right answer, but I'm just going to ask.
Yes. even when we were back in the AD&D 5th edition, we were just up against the original versions of creatures who were not powerful and had ridiculous sounding names.
Oh, yes, they did. If you ever want a good time, go back to the old school monster manuals.
Old monster manuals.
You're going to love it.
Oh, they're so good. I love the 2nd edition one so much with all of the different artists. So there's nothing consistent about the art.
Oh, it's great.
But the lore, I love the lore from the older editions. I am obsessed with it. Yeah. The Burgundy books are just my favorite thing probably ever put out. Just the flavor of the world comes through so clearly.
Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. Just we talked about the artwork of the games and like just the layout of the games and the impact they have on us. And we were blessed enough to have Larry Elmore on at one point, and we talked to him, about the original art of the game and how that imprinted on us. What D&D was. Just like his paintings were D&D. And it's crazy to see just how much of an impact one person can have. And so, when you're putting out shows like this and people being able to watch it, whether it's your stuff or like we're talking about Matt Mercer, there's obviously a very powerful effect there of seeing your game presented, seeing what it can do, seeing how people utilize the tools that are given in that book and bend it in different ways. And it's really freaking cool, and it's really nice to be able to do those like homages back to that stuff, just kind of touch base and be like, hey, you guys don't know about this, but here's something from the past.
Yeah, no, I really think that anybody should go back and look at the older. I think the 4th edition DMG2 is one of the best resources out there for running a game. Really Book of Vile Darkness. If you want to run villains, go read the Book of Vile Darkness. You will learn to run a villain.
Pretty sure that was our DM's running Bible for a very long time.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I mean, and again, we're coming back to the tools for storytelling being laid out really clearly in a really accessible manner for players.
I think we've had a long time to figure it out.
Yeah. It's just so clear that James Wyatt's stuff is all so good. I really recommend going back, taking a older lore and kind of how these mechanics came to be. Take a look at what a paladin was before you could be any alignment. Look at what happened to you if you did something out of your wheelhouse. Look at opposed schools of magic when wizards were really specialized. Those things are all so interesting, and I do sometimes miss them. 5th edition, it's amazing to have customization, but also sometimes it feels like you lose some of the specificity of the classes and what makes them really special. Because
but it's nice to be able
you
to
can look at but you put an Eldritch Knight and a Bladesinger side by side, and they're very similar, and one's a fighter and one's a wizard, and they're almost interchangeable, which is just strange. I mean, it's really neat because you can do all sorts of cool things, but losing some of the restrictions that used to be in there. I think you lose sort of why you had to go get your different groups of people together to work together to achieve a goal.
Yeah, I mean, you need that a little bit of niche protection in a group. I've always said. Some people did really disagree with me on that, but I think it's important to have kind of like a little bit of that, so that you actually have, like you said, some cohesion in the group. I do like some of the laxness as an experienced player, because I think as an experienced player, there are certain concepts and ideas you want to play with that the rigidness of a class doesn't allow you to really actualize. But I think for some newer players, I do think that you're right. I think that scaffolding, that initial structure of a class, with restrictions, helps inform roleplay. It helps inform what you can do in the game world. And I think those are beneficial things to new players. So I think 5th edition's kind of straddling that line, fairly well. They've done an amazing job with it for the new players coming into the industry and, getting involved in the game. So it does quite a bit. Let's see. Yeah, gnomes could only be illusionists. Yeah, I forgot about that.
You're sticking with that one still.
Yeah, I'm playing a gnome illusionist right now. That's true.
Everything was classes were all race limited and stat limited, and you couldn't multi-class, and to be a bard you had to triple class, and each class leveled at a different rate, so you would get XP, and it was one person would be a much higher level than and if you wanted to multi-class you had to you had to split your experience, and it would slow you way down, so you really had to fight to do that. And that all was really, really cool. And Wizards had opposed schools, so you couldn't ever take spells from your opposed school. It was a really interesting flavor, but stuff like paladins, if you broke your oath, you became a fighter. Until you could find a 7th level cleric, which in early editions, 7th level was like, probably
almost
close to 18th now, maybe. To confess to and be given your powers back. Those things always made for such interesting role play. And so I'm one of the strange people who really, really there's really great role play value in it.
Well, yeah, it really makes you think outside the box, because like, as you said, if you're a paladin and you have a really strong inclination to want to murder someone, but you're a paladin, you need to maybe rethink about how to get to that solution or be more creative, or just re-examine how you're going to go about it. Just those restrictions really force you to think of as the character outside of the box, without your initial go-to reaction, realizing that, I have this kind of thing I need to make sure I abide by. I made this oath. And I do love that for just really kind of pushing character creation and character creativity. It sounds weird to say that the restriction causes more creativity, but I really feel like in a lot of times it does.
It really does. And I actually am considering bringing those kinds of rules back to my table for 5th edition. And really, I've played with it a little bit, patrons and deities for clerics and warlocks.
Those are good avenues for that.
Yeah, there's space there. I have a player who's playing Pact of the Archfey, and his patron is Squalache, and Squalache keeps showing up and saying, "Hey, I'll help you out. I'll keep helping you out if you promise me this thing. Otherwise, we're done." Which is made for a really interesting dynamic, because he's just in way over his head now, and has to keep doing these very strange, chaotic things. But also is having his butt saved every so often when things are really, really dire.
Yeah, that may or may not have just occurred in our campaign with the guy sitting next to you here.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
May or may not gotten ripped in half, but made it through.
That's so great.
Yeah, I love that we're in an era now that we can actually dissect the game like this, and to learn all of what works, what doesn't work, what works kinda, why these things work. It could be its own school degree, I think, at this point. Yeah. It probably should be. I mean, game design for video games, of course, is its own thing, but I almost think that tabletop game design gives you more to work with in that.
Yeah. I agree.
understanding marketing, and in some ways, communication, like we touched on at the beginning, it's just so many areas.
Yeah, well, I know Kiana wrote her thesis. She did a ton of research about gamers and collected a whole bunch of material and ended up writing her on that. But yeah, or you look at someone like Unover, Mr. E, who's got his middle school classes that he's using D&D for, and that's as a teaching tool. It's an endlessly flexible strategy to approach things. Companies are hiring people to do they're hiring pro DMs to come team building exercises and creative strategizing.
That definitely seems like a thing corporations should incorporate more of. If you want to figure out how teams operate and you don't want to send them to the military, then this is the one right here. How do you operate under stress? How do you problem solve? How do you communicate with your team? All these things, like, it's all there.
And you want to teach math? This is an amazing way to teach math. You're using dice, you're using probability, you're using addition, multiplication, all of that. And as much or as little as you want. You want to teach creative writing. It's all here. But also, I think it's important to look outside of D&D at some of what other people are creating and recognize that the indie game scene is also remarkable.
Oh, there's some cool stuff out there.
Phenomenal things happening there too.
Like you were describing just a few minutes ago with that mechanic of, giving the dice for the narration and the fact that you're sitting in a dark room. These are like little things, but like those little things make massive impacts on the way that game feels, the way that the event as a player or as a runner of that game kind of goes. Holy but Jesus, did we just get rated by 259 people?
We did.
Thank you 2 times.
Thank you.
Wow. That's a record. Thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for coming and visiting.
Yeah, we are in the middle of talking to Jen Kretchmer here from Monsters and Fables, and we've been having a long form conversation about tabletop role playing game in general, what it can provide for us, how to incorporate disabilities into games and making it more accommodating for people to be here. I am actually just overwhelmed by the number of people that just popped in or saying hello. I appreciate it a lot. So yeah, we're kind of getting into the weeds here a little bit, talking about what games provide for us as teaching tools, how we can interact with them and do team building, creative writing, mathematics, and that kind of stuff. So thank you guys for this avalanche of follows, by the way. This is incredible. Spectacular. I am completely off my game all of a sudden.
You've thrown the host, everybody. Congratulations.
Absolutely.
Victory.
We are kind of actually sadly getting towards the end of the night, though. We're closing in on that 2-hour mark. So since we now have a massive audience here, why don't you replug some of your shows that you're working on right now, just so they get another taste of it.
Sure. I am on D&D Beyond's Beyond Heroes, which is Wednesdays from Pacific on the D&D Beyond channel. It's an absolute joy of a show, and every episode is self-contained, though there is a larger season arc happening. So you can hop in anytime and join us and not be lost. And this week we're going to Wildmount, so that's going to be exciting. I also stream on my own channel, which is Dreamwisp Jen. I usually go after the show and we do kind of a debrief on that. I stream my DM prep and talk about games and help people troubleshoot their own games, write their own stuff, deal with issues at their table. I am working on the D&D book club. We are going to read Elric of Malnibone as our first book in February. I'll be putting up the Discord information as soon as it is ready to go on my Twitter, which is @DreamWisp. What else do? I don't know. I make television. I'm a TV producer most of the time by trade. And I do a lot of disability inclusion and accessibility.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for you guys who are tuning in that may not have ever come across this before, this is our weekly show. We do it on Monday nights, 10 p.m. Central Standard Time, where you go for a couple hours. We bring on a different guest every time, and we talk about topics that come up in the gaming community, whether that be tabletop specifically to D&D or other game styles, just making games, playing video games cooperatively, all that kind of stuff. And we like to dissect the stuff that we've done wrong in the past that we can help you guys with in the future. That's why we call it the wisdom check. We've made enough mistakes that you guys can learn from us. And if you're interested in catching up on any of our old material, we do have a YouTube channel that has all of our backlog of episodes up. And I'll link that real quick for you. So there's
also,
that.
As everyone is seeing as well, we are using that Jen was lovely enough to recommend to us the web captioner software, which is we are using to provide closed captioning tonight. It's a completely free software, easy to use, and I'd highly recommend anyone who is interested in making use of closed captioning for the hearing impaired. If you're doing any streams of your own, look into this software. It's fantastic.
Yeah, this is the first time we've used it.
webcaptioner.com. You set up a link, you set up your sources, and it gives you a link, plug it in, and you have captions. It's like magic.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And as our admins are doing down there, they're linking some other stuff for us. We do have a Discord if you're interested. I think that link just popped in. It looks like it's lagging out a little bit. But go ahead and join us there. We'll continue conversations there. You can meet other people that are in the community and share with that. And also, if you prefer your content in podcast format, we are on Spotify now as of last week. So you should be able to find episodes 1 through, I think, 44 at this point. And we'll be happy to have you on there as well. Let's see. I guess we got you all here. We might as well just plug, right?
Well, as we were approaching the end of the show, it's the right time to do it.
It is. It's a weird timing for us. One thing I did want to point out is tomorrow night, we do have a new show launching. So one of the members of our group, Cam, he is a musician, and we've been hounding on him to make music for our channel. And tomorrow, he is going to be debuting a new show where he puts together music. He's going to go through like the editing software. I don't really know exactly what instruments he's going to use. He usually plays a guitar, but I know he's got a piano as well. And that is going to be... What did he settle on for the name on that? Was it Bardic Inspirations? What do you want to go with? No, Bardic Knowledge at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time here on this channel. So please be sure to kind of check in with him, keep him company, chat with him a little bit, see how that goes. I think it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. And
we'll be using that music in our campaign. So
yeah, hopefully,
exciting process.
Hopefully it'll sub in for the cam nonsense we've been doing. It's a little inside joke for people who've also watched our D&D game that we do, fairly frequently these days. And actually, I think we have a D&D game coming up that you guys will be able to watch on here. When is our next game? Is that
we
this
do? Our next game is the 25th of January. It's our 29th game in our current campaign.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so we should be 10 p.m.
Started on a hope and a prayer, and here we are.
So yeah, check that out too. We have a good time with that.
If you want to watch past episodes of Beyond Heroes, they're all on YouTube. And also the show that turned into Beyond Heroes YouTube, which is Heroes of the Veil. So that's all available, backlogged on YouTube. Thank you for reminding me.
That is phenomenal. See, that's what I like, is making sure that we have as many ways for you guys to see our content and see other content as you can. And that's one of the things we do on the Discord. If you haven't already gone on there, we like to cross promote. So if you're a channel, obviously somebody's a channel here that they came and rated us, that wants to be involved in this community, wants to share what they're doing, please come in, check it out. We have a whole section just for promotion. So if you got something that's relevant, put it out there. We also have a stream team that's been linked down there for you. So these are other channels we're associated with. One of them is Air Laser, and she does variety games throughout the week. She also has a Friday night campaign that is 5th edition, which is quite good. They just started up recently. There's one episode that's been out. We got the Grouch Couch. So if you're into a party atmosphere and lots and lots and lots of crowd interaction, Grouch Couch is your place. They get a little sloppy. They have a lot of fun, and you'll have a good time there. And then Litching Hour is a very fascinating channel. He does single player card games and turns them into stories as he's playing live, and it's really cool. So definitely check that out as well. And yeah, I mean, we could start another conversation, but we got like a few minutes here. I wasn't expecting to get to our outro this quickly. So we may be looking at possibly doing another raid to pay the next person in line a little bit of a thank you. But before we do that, I want to say a huge thank you so very much to Jen. I appreciate you being here, taking the time out.
Us, Jen.
And
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been wonderful.
This was a blast.
Lots of stuff that you shared with our audience that we really, truly appreciate. And for those of you guys that came in late, I'll have this episode up soon on the YouTube. And also we'll have it up here that you can watch later on demand. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Tim, did you have anything else you wanted to plug? Or
well, I'll let you guys know that likely be all getting together to attempt not to die in 7 days. So you can see most of the D&D group here getting on and playing that live. And otherwise, you should see us again coming up on this next Saturday for our campaign. And then next Monday, you should have your regularly scheduled hosts of Dustin and Jeff back here once again for the Wisdom Check. And I believe the guest we're having on next week, Jeff. Oh, and I think there was the mic cutting out on Jeff at the perfect time.
Code of silence.
As he ritually replugs his microphone, but he will have Dustin back here for next week. Couldn't be here. He was off helming I believe, a fraternity shindig. Actually, no, a guild shindig, as I recall.
Yeah, let's see if my mic is on now. Is it on?
It is. Welcome back.
Awesome. We have Adam Rose. He's a rules developer for Zweihander. So for all of our Zweihander fanatics that are in the chat, he'll be coming on talking about game balancing and making mechanics. So it'll be a nice dovetail to what we were just kind of getting into here.
Nice.
So if you're interested in joining with this, and I hope you are, make sure you ride with us on over to the Grouch Couch. And at the end of their sessions, they're pretty sloppy. So be ready for a party.
Maybe right? Some drinking.
Yeah, they might be winding down, but we'll come in and say hello. Let's see.
Thank you so much for joining, everybody. I really appreciate you taking your time out to spend it with us this Monday evening. Hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.